Like one of the highlights I think in this book that you put really well, or something that really drove home to me is, well, there was a couple things, man. Like some of your sayings in the book, like, was it do stupid shit, get stupid prizes?
That's right. That's right.
That was awesome.
Yeah.
But then also just explaining, like, most people that experience a police officer, 99% of the time, it's in a negative situation, right?
Right.
And then also, I guess I don't know how to explain this. So I'm just thinking about it all the times that I've been involved in a situation where the police needed to be called to my home or somebody else's home or whatever. It's a hostile. It's like one of the worst memories that I have in my life, right?
Yeah.
So I don't think like people put that in perspective either.
Yeah.
Like
It's
a
tough.
lot of the encounters that you guys have are all negative.
Well,
or
you know,
90%.
What
of them,
that
right?
brings to my mind is a chapter in there called "Stop Police Brutality."
You're right.
Yeah.
It's a great one.
So it's facetious, obviously, by the name.
Yeah.
Stop police brutality, with exclamation point, right? And I go into, really, I've got a couple of ideas for how to stop police brutality. One, don't break the law. Two, if you do break the law, just do as you're fucking told. How about that? That would stop like 99% of police brutality overnight, right? So, all this shit I've ever seen in my career was where things went south is because, not say the police officer didn't do the right thing. So sometimes the police officer goes overboard or they lose their cool and do something they shouldn't or say something they shouldn't. That absolutely happens. You're a human being. Things get away from you. But it's always a result of something that led to that, right? And that's something that we kind of forget, right? Unless you've got robots walking around, you're never going to eliminate the human factor of people making bad decisions and doing bad shit and stupid shit and just, things they shouldn't do, right? I mean, it is what it is. So, especially under stress and in negative situations like you're talking about, statistically, the stats on it are really, really interesting if you ever look at it. So, for example, there's an interesting study that was done by the Skeptic Research Center. You can Google this shit, right? And it was fascinating. It was in 2020 after the George Floyd incident. And what it was they did a survey of people to ask them, how many unarmed black men do you think the police kill every year in the United States, right? And the answers was like 0 to 10, 10 to 100, 100 to 1,000, 1,000 to 10,000, 10,000 or more, right?
Holy
and they
shit.
also asked people where they get their news from. And it really was a big difference. The people who got their news from, say, left-leaning news sources versus people who get their news from right-leaning news sources. They had very different opinions on this, numbers-wise. But anyway, the average was like 1,000 a year was the average, is what people thought. They killed they thought that U.S. law enforcement kills roughly 1,000 unarmed black men every year, right? And there was people who thought it was over 10,000. So if you look, they went back 1 year to 2019, and they found that if you compare white Hispanic versus black, for starters, I think it was 24 white Hispanic killed, unarmed people killed by police that year, and the same time it was 12 unarmed black people killed by police that year.
Now, when to specify unarmed, is that a handgun or is there
it's just
other
no
any
arms.
weapons?
But
okay,
yes, but they dig into it a little bit more.
gotcha.
So, for example, out of that 12, 10 of them were very egregious circumstances, like they're trying to take the officer's gun out of their holster, or they're trying to run him over by a car, something that they, deadly force is authorized for. There was only 2 where they were like truly unarmed and in question. And in both those cases, the officer was charged, right? Wow. So, and here another interesting stat is this: is if you look at the homicide rate, rate.
I'm sorry, I'm just doing the math in my head because I'm not the sharpest tool in the shed. But that brings it down to like 10.
Math
right?
math is hard. No, it brings it down to 2.
2.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it's 2 true unarmed incidents.
Right.
And in
Okay.
both cases, the officer was armed. Out of 700,000 officers and all the uses of forces around the country every year, that's actually really fucking good.
Yeah.
Really good, right?
How have the statistics changed now that we're in this age of telling the police how to police?
Yeah,
Like,
I bet it's even gotten less. But just to finish off real quick with that, the stat is that it was roughly 6 point something % of all white homicides, and I think they include Hispanic in the white when they do their white Hispanic, roughly 6%. It was like 6.5% of white homicides were from police. Roughly, I think it was 2.2% of black homicides were from police. So is there a problem with police? I actually don't think there is. I mean, are there police officers who do stupid shit? Is there police officers who break the law occasionally? Sure. Is there police officers who shouldn't be police officers? Absolutely.
If
But
there's a human element, you're going to have error.
100%.
Yeah.
But if you're talking about across the board a problem, I don't believe there is. I think there's actually more of a problem with the public.
I think there's more of a problem with the media because anytime, just because I know some police officers that have been involved in some media brigades, I guess you could say, the media never turns around and blames the criminals. Like even at Columbine, right?
Absolutely.
They blame the police departments or even, what was the Uvalde? Was it Uvalde, the Texas one, right?
Yeah.
I mean, people still die, but the reason why that all started, maybe the police didn't do the right thing when they showed up, and I agree with that.
Yeah.
But all the blame was put on the police department. The police department. Nobody talked about the active shooter that was in the building breaking the law in the first.
Well, let's talk about Uvalde for a second. So, I mean, I admit that when stuff is brought up about police misconduct, I usually automatically go to the police's defense, and I'm a little bit defensive about. No, I'm not a little bit. I'm defensive about police work because I've taken so much shit over 27 and a half years.
That was probably a really bad example for
no,
me to bring up.
No, it's not. I mean, because I don't think they did the right thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't either.
But on the other hand, I wasn't there, which I always say. And you know what a lot of people don't realize too is that he had barricaded the door. The first two officers who tried to get in, he shot through the door and injured them with a rifle, right? And they were barricaded. And they backed up. They were both injured and they backed up. So it's real easy for us to say, well, if I was there, even though I got a guy with an AR on the other side of the door with this barricade, I'm just going to fucking work my way through that door while he's shooting through the door. I mean, really, you know, and I love it when people say to me, well, you know, I just fucking kill him, right? Really? Have you ever killed somebody before?
Right.
You know, I want to see how that goes for you.